Today I'm going to be talking about a video that randomly came across my YouTube feed. It's life lessons from people that have lived to be 100 years old or greater. I thought this just fit perfectly within sort of the confines of my channel niche. So, on the channel we talk about workplace and mindset and perspective, and I love just hearing about older people and sort of the wisdom they have to offer. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to just react to a little bit of the tidbits of advice that they give. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is just swapping back and forth to a couple of seconds of the video and then to my reaction, and then we'll just hopefully have a discussion based on that. So this video is from Business Insider, and if you're curious to watch more, I will have a link to the whole video in the description. But yeah, hope you all enjoy, and let's start a discussion on this.
My childhood was during the Great Depression. Nothing came easy to me.
I was a dancer employed by the United States government to dance for the soldiers. I mean, it was big.
So we can see that in the beginning of this video, we're told about the lives of these 5 different centenarians. And the very neat thing is just seeing how they grew up, the effect that World War II had on both women and men at that time, and how much of an impact it had on everyone's lives at that time. It's just so interesting to sort of think of the perspective, and it kind of makes you realize how much that maybe we take for granted nowadays, and maybe how much because of technology and, let's say, the niceties of life, we've been able to live maybe a more productive lifestyle or a completely different lifestyle. It just really put me in this position to think about the mindset and perspective. A lot of these things I talk about on my channel, and just realize like, wow, even on days that I think that life might be so difficult, you sometimes forget that the people that lived way long before us and the people that still continue to live, they had upbringings that were entirely different than the ones that we had to experience, right? They went through wars and the Great Depression and a lot of other big world events that, frankly, a lot of us really haven't had exposure to. Maybe apart from, let's say, COVID, which in a sense is going to be our own experience that maybe in 100 years, if a lot of us live to be that age, we'll be able to share with people of that generation. So I think this is just a very nice introduction to the whole video because it really sets the tone for the rest of it. So let's keep going and see what they have to talk about.
Do you have marriage advice?
A marriage what?
Advice.
Oh, let me see, because it's important.
It's so important to feel love.
Love is something that so many of us yearn for, and you can just see immediately as the topic comes up about love, this first centenarian, the way that she reacts, and she's just so taken aback by the word, probably flooded with memories of so many different loves that she's experienced in her life, maybe a singular love. She talks about her husband, how he was verbal. I'm not really sure what she's trying to get at there, but just the fact that she has such a, fond memory of that, it just goes to show how powerful of an emotion that is. And I think love, is so important for all of us because it helps us feel connected in this world. I think especially nowadays, there's such a loneliness epidemic. It's so hard for us to find connections. And I do think it's harder than ever to find someone that you can truly connect with. Even despite with social media and all these tools that we have and technology, it almost feels fake in a way, right? It doesn't feel real anymore. And I think a lot of us are trying to find that raw connection, but it's like we have to play this balancing act between wanting to be heard and seen on social media. A lot of us sort of chase that clout with maybe what we really want, again, is to get that raw connection. This is something that I think is very interesting because I think that the older generation, and I've seen this a lot from Gen Z, I wish I can find a clip or something, not a clip, but a document on it, because I've read about it in some places like Twitter where you see the newer generations, not older, the newer generations like Gen Z maybe breaking away from this. They're trying to maybe, not revolutionize, but yeah, have a revolution against social media and everything that it sort of stands for. And so I'd be very curious to see what they come up with. And maybe if we can maybe backtrack a little bit and go back to a time where we only use social media for what it is really necessary for, but we still try to keep connections raw. Again, I think that would help us a lot, try to find the connections. I know people nowadays that aren't with someone, and sometimes they feel like, why even attempt to find someone? It's just too hard. And the things that people are interested in nowadays, for a lot of people, it just doesn't mesh well. And there's something that we'll get to that in a second, something that one of these women mentioned that I think sort of hits that nail on the head.
A like-mindedness is the foundation of a solid marriage.
You agree and you're on the same page and you want to live your life together.
So these are two very important points that I think that were brought up about love, where they say like-mindedness and agreeableness, or the ability for a couple to agree on something and head toward a specific direction together. I just feel like that's something that's so important, and I can confidently say this because I just have experience. I'm 32 years old. I have experience from many different life events, and I can confidently say that if you are with someone that you agree with things on and you think alike, it just makes everything a lot easier. I don't think that being in a relationship needs to be very difficult. Of course, there's going to be good days and bad days. There's going to be ups and downs, but in general, for the most part in a relationship, I do believe that you should sort of just be able to navigate it somewhat easily. Even in the bad times, it should be easy for you to navigate that and discuss it with your partner and come to a resolution, hopefully sooner rather than later. And I think that if you feel that things are too tough or you have to walk on eggshells, if you feel like there's a constant battle, you guys just do not agree on things, or one person wants to go one way and the other person wants to go another way, especially if you're young and you're watching this, I would take that as a red flag, because it's very hard to change people. You might feel like maybe you found the love of your life, but if you feel like you have to constantly convince them to do something else than what they want to do, it's just not going to work out. The only way for people to change is to find the motivation within themselves and really be inspired themselves and not through any external factors. So I just think that the fact that they highlighted this, these are people that are 100 plus years old. How much wisdom and knowledge do they have that they can share with us? And remember, they said two things, like-mindedness and agreeableness. Being able to agree on something in the future, heading in that direction, will just make your relationships and love life a lot easier. So it's, again, continue on to what they're saying. I just find this so interesting, and I'm glad I get to share this with all you guys.
The most challenging thing about being 100, that sometimes time hangs heavy on your hands. I don't have any of my good friends that are still alive.
Yeah, this is something that's a little bit scary sometimes if you think about it. You think the older that you get, are you going to be the one that outlives all your family and friends? Sometimes it feels like, what if I am? Am I just going to be lonely? How am I going to navigate that? Is it going to be so difficult? Is that going to be the reason that maybe I pass away? I have people in my family that oftentimes when their spouse passes or a best friend passes, life just becomes too difficult without them. It becomes a little bit meaningless. And I do believe that that can send people sort of to, without, for lack of a better word, their deathbed, because we are social creatures and we rely so much on the people around us that if we're just left alone, imagine what that feels like. And just to sort of tie this to, a little bit of a personal journey, when I was in high school, I did have a large friend group. And I think that's fairly common for a lot of people when they're in their teen years, in high school with a lot of people, and maybe even going into college, I had a lot of friends. And again, as I graduated high school, went to college, I maintained that group of friends. After college, it sort of went down, and I was stuck with one best friend. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because my best friend passed away a couple of years ago in a car accident, unfortunately. And that just goes to show that, you don't have to be 100 years old to outlive someone. But now I'm left in this position where I don't really have, best friends anymore in the true sense of the word. I do consider my wife my best friend, and she really is my best friend. But at the end of the day, what is that feeling like? Either when you get old or when you're, a younger person like me, and maybe you're watching and you find yourself in a similar position, like this person described, time hangs heavy because maybe without this group, without this support, you feel like, man, what is there left to do? The clock is just ticking, and what am I really living for anymore? It's just a very interesting thing to think about, and maybe you can have the discussion with some of your friends or some of your family and ask them what they think and hopefully start something meaningful there.
I miss my husband. I was married to him for 82 wonderful years. No, I'm sorry, 85. And I lost two sons. I just lost one a few weeks ago. My oldest son. He was 82 when he died.
Can you imagine just being the person that outlives both their husband and their two kids? That's just something that I can't imagine anyone going through, let alone just like a best friend or a spouse. You are truly outliving everyone that you know. And I feel like, especially as a mother, I shared this video with my mother, and she was telling me like she probably could not resume her life normally after that. She wouldn't know what to do. I think that as a parent, you typically think that you will die first before your kids. But if both your kids die, or however many kids you have, whether it be 1, 2, or 3, imagine all of them passing before you do. It might almost feel like a little bit of a curse. Like, why? I sort of just wanted to live my adult life with them, my senior life with them, watch them grow and prosper, and then go on my way towards death and live a happy afterlife. So I just can't imagine what that sort of thing feels like. And hopefully this person has a lot of family around them to support them. But either way, that's something that's going to stick around with you forever, I'm sure.
Life goes on. So get on and do the things that you love to do.
Life goes on, and you ought to do the things that you love to do. I mean, what a better message. It couldn't have been said better than anyone but him, And I think when I but when I heard it, I just really thought to myself, I need to be a lot more grateful for the people that are around me. So I think if you're watching this and you're listening to this, every single morning that you wake up, really look at the people that are around you. Think about the people that you truly love, and think about the people that truly love you, and realize that you probably have a lot more support than you think you have. Okay, and on the days that you're annoyed at someone or upset with them, just realize that they're your family, maybe your partner, your wife, your husband, or your brother or sister, your parents. Just tell them every once in a while that you love them. Because like all these people, you can see how much love is such an important feeling in their lives, and how they feel once they're sort of that last person standing. And I bet you, if you told any of these people, if you can just have one more opportunity with this person, how much they would appreciate that and be grateful for that. I think it would really put you in that position. So again, just be grateful for those that are around you. Tell them you love them. Hang out with them. I feel like now more than ever, I'm hanging out with my family a lot more. And to be completely honest, it's just very much thanks to my wife. She's very much into family, and she enjoys being around people, and I really have to thank her for that. And I probably will after this video. So let's keep going and learning more about how these centenarians live and the knowledge that they have to share with us.
It used to be that if you wanted to know the answer to something, you'd have to go to the library and do a great deal of research to find out about something. Today, with the snap of your fingers, the internet has that answer for you. Done.
Can you imagine being born 100 years ago, let alone 50 years ago, and seeing the advent of the internet and just modern computing and technology? Like, how crazy that must be. I just can't imagine. People that have lived 100 years have seen so much of the world evolve over time. And especially for these people, they were around way before all these crucial inventions that we just take for granted. And now they're sort of on the flip side now. And some of these people are even experiencing new things like AI, for example. So imagine how much the internet has brought us. We hear about how now we can just get information so much faster. My dad always tells me how back then he used to have to go to the library and pour through dozens of books of information just to find that one thing that he was looking for. Now we just take that for granted. Everything around us has evolved so that how do I explain this? Like, back then, if you were assigned something, that assignment was based, or not based, but the assignment revolved around you being able to go to the library and find information about it, and it would take some amount of time to complete that assignment. And now there are new assignments that are given that also, even with all this information, can still be hard to complete. So it's not like, a lot of times we think that these technologies replace us or they're going to make lives a lot easier, but even with all this information, you still have to know how to find the information and digest it and read through it and parse it and be able to understand it. But I just think it's so true what he says. I could find something now in a matter of seconds and just become that much smarter, right? A little tidbit of knowledge. And I think with AI especially, like just today, it's funny, just today, I'm a software developer, and there was a big presentation today at work where they were talking about AI, and I realized that there were some of my colleagues were just way ahead of me with AI, and I thought, I really need to buckle down and get to learn how to use this. And I realized more and more that AI is probably not going to replace engineers. And I know some people have been affected by that, but at the end of the day, I think AI is just a new layer on top of everything else that we've already been accustomed to. In the same way that computing didn't necessarily replace everyone's jobs or change the entire world, like we didn't just go to everyone being on computers. I feel like AI is just a new tool that will allow for us to work faster, but difficult problems will still be there. There will still be complex and challenging and interesting and fun problems to work through, and AI will just help us maybe get to a solution faster, but not necessarily replace everyone that's working on them. So I just think it's very interesting to see how the internet and all of this has evolved over time, especially through their eyes. And as someone that is a user of it every day, maybe I should be more grateful for it. So again, let's keep going and seeing what these people have to say.
The important thing is for us to utilize these inventions properly
carefully, not to use them in a bad way.
Utilize these inventions properly. I mean, that's a topic in and of itself. There's just a lot of people, especially Generation Z. I know earlier I was talking about sort of them going on a revolution. I know some of them are, but there's still a lot of people that are, let's say, affected by social media, especially for kids that are much younger than we are. I know the teenagers are really suffering right now with apps like Instagram, for example, and Facebook. So I think it's very, pertinent, very important for us to be able to use these applications in a safe way, in a way that they were maybe, well, I don't even want to say intended for, because a lot of these companies are pushing for their apps to be intended in maybe malicious ways, in ways that are immoral, unethical. It just doesn't seem right. So I think we have to find a balance between how we use these applications and just make sure that we don't go crazy or lose our sanity. I think as someone that's a little older now, I think about my children and I know that they're going to be exposed to technology, maybe not even by me or my wife, for example, us as parents, but definitely through people at school. I have to raise them in such a way that if they're presented with these new and interesting innovations and inventions, as they talk about in this video, to know the difference, to know how to find that balance and not to get sort of sucked up into this world. Because time and time again, we've seen that overall being so invested in our devices is probably not a good thing. There are some things that still stand true today, and I think the older generation can help a lot with connecting or helping the newer generation sort of understand what that's like. Maybe back in the day, going to a library and reading through books was a little bit healthier. Maybe it was a little more wholesome. At least you got out of your house, you met people, you talked to people. You were reading something physical. You can really make that connection to in your head. It felt more meaningful. But now on a screen or on your desktop, you're just staring at bits and bytes. Right? There's nothing there. It's just information. It's just data. It's binary. So again, very important quote that they said here. I really loved it. And like I've been saying, let's go back. This next section, I've already seen the video, but this next section is going to be really fun to watch.
I suggest 1 hour a day of strenuous exercise.
Guard your health. It's a precious gift.
A lot of stretching, a lot of kicking.
To walk.
We hear it time and time again, and a lot of us, we don't do it, and a lot of us do it, but exercise is extremely important. If you're all familiar with a guest that has been on a lot of Joe Rogan's podcasts, his name is Dr. Peter Attia. He says that exercise at the end of the day really is the thing that will reduce your all-cause mortality by the greatest amount. Right? There is nothing better than the feeling that exercise gives you and the benefits that it gives you that you can really do outside of your, there's just nothing else that you can do that's that potent in your life for making your life better and helping you lead a longer and healthy life. There was a podcast in, I think, at Joe Rogan as well, like if there was a pill that we can create that made you feel how you felt after a strenuous exercise, then everyone would be buying that because you feel amazing after a workout. And these people, take it from them, they lived very long, and if they're doing strenuous exercise or lifting weights, or like this one person said, walk, which if you've seen a lot of my videos in the past, that's something I'm very adamant about. I mean, today, more recently, I've been doing 2 walks. I do a walk at work and then a walk at night with my wife, and I'm now averaging 10,000 plus steps a day. And the greatest thing is that it feels effortless, right? During work, I'm just walking during my lunch break, so it's like I wouldn't be doing anything else. And then at night, it's just a nice opportunity for me to connect with my wife. So I think if we reframe it in this way, if we attach more meaning to it than just like, oh, I have to go work out because, whatever. If you attach more meaning, like I have to work out because I know it's going to be good for me, or I get to connect with my partner or my friend, or I get to do something productive during these walks, then I feel like it will just elevate your life and get you to be more disciplined about it. I mean, it's so important for us to stay active both physically and mentally. So I just thought it was very cool how they brought this up here. And again, from someone that really loves to walk, the walk quote was just really an amazing one that I truly connected with. So let me know if exercising is a very important part of your life and it's something that you do, or if not, let me know if it's something that you want to do. Maybe you're struggling with it. I'll be more than happy to try and help you through it and see if we can get you to start. So let's keep seeing what they have to say.
We have a bike here. I go on and I try to stay on that bike for 15 to 20 minutes and keep my legs in healthy form. I can feel it in my body. The muscles are not what they were.
The bike video, that little clip is one of my favorite clips because it just reminds me a lot of my dad. And God bless my dad. I love my dad so much, and I'm so proud of my dad because a couple of years ago, he quit cold turkey from smoking and drinking. Dad, if you're watching this, I didn't ask you beforehand, but I hope it's okay that I'm being honest with the audience here. I mean, this was, I think, maybe 10 years ago, so it's been a long time. Maybe not 10, at least 7, let's say, but he now is very strict with his bike. I mean, he does the bike for an hour a day, and his life has changed dramatically. I mean, within weeks of him starting the bike, he said that he was sleeping better, his relationship with my mom improved, he just felt better overall, his mood was better, he was eating healthier. I mean, the bike as a baseline really just improved his life in so many other ways. So the fact that this person's talking about the bike and how they use it even just at 15 minutes a day, I mean, think about that, 15 minutes a day, and this person lived to be over 100. So what does that say? Just make it a consistent thing and do a little bit every single day, and that small effort over a very long period of time will compound, and your body will just become this machine, right? You will improve your cardiovascular health and your leg muscles, like they're saying, and I think it will overall just be better for you, and hopefully you can live a very long life. So let's keep watching and see what more we can learn.
But you can wait, Grandma. You can wait till he finishes that.
Start at an early age and eat properly. Watch your diet. Don't get overweight.
There was a period of time when I put weight on, and I regret that very much.
So I work in one of these companies that offers you lunch just for being an employee there, but it's not the type of lunch like is offered on some of the bigger West Coast tech companies where it's free. I do have to pay for these lunches. And I remember upon meeting my wife, I was about 29 years old, and probably for the first 6 months of our relationship, I was eating heavily in the cafeteria at my job. The food was pretty good. I was excited because I was going to the gym and I was loading up on protein, but the heavier the plate meant the heavier the price tag. So it wasn't good for my physical health nor my financial health. A lot of this food, after a certain amount of time, I started looking into it, and other people started looking into it, and they realized that there was like a lot of oils and fats and things that are probably just not that good. And a couple of weeks later, I was, told by my doctor that my cholesterol was very high. It wasn't good for a 32-year-old. And I feel like that's when my diet shifted completely. And I feel like since then, my wife bought me this scale that I used to track my macros. And I know maybe I sound like a meathead because I like going to the gym and all these things, but in reality, it helped a ton. And only recently, like ever since then, I've been eating a lot healthier foods and generally eating less calories. I've been trying to lean out, for the summer and just for overall health. But I have noticed that my food not just makes me feel better, but I have noticed physical changes in my body. Now, maybe this is TMI, but my right foot, I always had this sort of athlete's foot, and I would treat it with medication, maybe some sprays or like ointments, maybe even pills sometimes, depending on the podiatrist that I would go to. But something I noticed is I stopped taking all those, and ever since my diet increased, I noticed that a lot of it has gone. Even one of the nails on my foot was a little bit affected, so it was kind of rough, and ever since then, it's smoothed out. So I'd like to think that because of the decisions I've made with my diet, a lot of my life has improved and my overall mood has just gotten better. I do believe that eating a little bit less than what you need to is probably more important. I generally think that humans really don't need to be eating that much. So it just stands to reason, though, these people are so adamant about their diet, and I love to see that because it is so true. You are what you eat, and if you eat a good diet and you eat healthy vegetables and whole foods, of course have the occasional cheat meal so you don't go crazy, also have fun, but overall make that diet a healthy one, and I just think that you will feel a lot better and perhaps even live to be 100 or more like some of these people, right? I mean, they've lived so long, they wouldn't be saying these things unless they were true, and we all know that we've heard from doctors, from our own doctors, from other doctors, that in general, it is always better to eat a very nutritious, healthy diet. It makes sense. So let's continue to see what they have to say.
My attitude is, don't let the old man in. I refuse to think old. If you think young, more than likely you're going to act young.
There's always something on my plate that I look forward to doing, and I think that's important for people to look forward to what you can do today that makes a difference.
Don't let the old man in and always have something to look forward to. I think these two things are very smart, right? And it's two things that I feel like I myself have adapted in my lifestyle. The older I've gotten, I still feel like I'm very much the same person I was when I was 17 years old. But I also do think that comes in different times of your life, and certain people around you can either amplify that or sort of nerf that. right? So I know I keep referencing my wife, but I will say that when I met my wife, she really just made me feel like a kid again, and I think that's a really good thing. She made me feel like I was when I was like 17, really my silly self. I really just got comfortable with being the true me. And also, we always had something to look forward to, especially in the beginning, in that honeymoon phase. We always had this whiteboard that I have here right next to me, just full of dates and things to do. Even if that thing to do was like go to Target or do chores, or maybe bigger things like trips, whatnot. It's always good to have things to look forward to. So make it a habit to do that, even if it's small things. Maybe make a to-do list for yourself and just write it on a whiteboard, or put a reminder on your phone and just tell yourself like, oh, I have this thing to look forward to this weekend. Maybe I'm going to hang out with family. Maybe I'm going to get some food. Maybe I'm going to do some chores or some laundry. I think just make it fun. Instead of looking at chores as being a necessarily bad thing or a boring thing, always have something to look forward to. So while you're working, you say, oh man, I can't wait for the weekend, or I can't wait for that weekday. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a weekend. But I think overall, the people that I have found that stay busy are the ones that live more meaningful lives. And I remember I had an uncle who passed away about a year ago. Actually, very, recently was his 1 year anniversary, and he lived to be 95 years old. He was a civil engineer, and he's one of the reasons why I wanted to become an engineer myself. Actually, I wanted to start off as a mechanical engineer, and then eventually I switched over to software. But he always kept himself busy. Like, he got very into painting. He started teaching himself how to paint, and he became really good. I mean, good enough that I have some of his paintings. You probably can't see it here, but I have one way back there, and my wife also has one in her office. And he also just always built things. I remember going to his house as a kid, and he had these huge pieces of machinery that, cost several $1,000s, but over time he bought them, and his garage was just full of knickknacks and, all these machines, and we'd always build things. So I think that keeping yourself busy and active, mentally active, physically active, will definitely contribute to a more meaningful and prosperous life. So again, think about it. These people are over 100 years old. They have a lot to say. They have a lot of knowledge and wisdom. It makes sense why they're saying these things. So let's again continue and see what more we can learn.
I like games. It keeps my mind active. I play, and I do pretty well.
Oh, for the triple word. Got 2 more? You gotta keep 7.
I like video games too, especially Expedition 33. You've probably heard me talking about it in the last videos. Every video I end, I say that I'm going to play right after, but I think now I know that video games are the key to a long and prosperous life. So if anyone tells me, what am I doing to live a long life? I'm going to say, yeah, I like to play a lot of games. I keep my mind active. So if any gamers are out there, now we know we have justification and we can feel vindicated for making the right decision that we must play video games as much as we can. Let's keep watching.
Make an investment, even if you want to start small.
Patience to achieve what in the long run is the best for you.
The stock market goes up and down, but in the long run, the stock market always goes up.
I'm pretty big into investing, and I only learned about investing through starting my career. Before my career, 8 years ago, I really had no idea what any of that was, but just through hearing people around me talk about it, I became more interested, and over time, my financial literacy improved. So I think it makes sense as someone that's over 100 years old, they're going to tell you what's good to do financially, and one of those things to do is to invest and be patient. Like this person said, the stock market goes up and down, but if you zoom out, it generally goes up. And this is something that we've seen a lot recently with the whole, tariffs debacle and, let's say like the recession in 2008 and a lot of other hard times like COVID. If you focus on a very specific moment in history, you might see that stock market dip, but over time, the stock market has always performed well. So just invest little by little. Maybe you want to do lump sum investments, or maybe you want to do dollar cost averaging, but whatever you do, be patient with it. And the most important thing is actually do it. Don't just talk about it. Don't think about it. Just do it, whether it's $1 a day or $50 a month or $1,000 a year. If you put some money aside and invest it, it will make you more financially free the older you get. My parents always sort of guided me and told me that I should work harder as I'm younger so that when I get older, I can have an easier life. And even me being only 32, because I started investing at 24, I can already see, let's say the fruits of my labor. I can already tell that, hey, by the time I'm 67, retirement age, or whenever the retirement age is, at that time, the older I get, I will be able to have a financially secure future. So if you're watching this and you haven't started investing yet, I think investing in a good, mutual fund is the way to go, or maybe you can do an index fund, and perhaps I'm not a financial advisor at all, but I feel like I know just enough to be able to, perhaps suggest a couple of stocks to invest into that will do good for you over time. So I'll throw it out there. Again, I'm not a financial expert by any means. I'm not an advisor, but if you want some help, feel free to drop a comment and I will do my best to give you some of my advice, and you can take it or leave it, see where it takes you. But overall, I do think investing, being patient with your money, not focusing on short-term gratification, thinking long-term will set you up financially for your future. Again, we see a lot of people driving these fancy cars and living in these expensive homes, but just because we see that, it doesn't necessarily mean that either they even own it or they're truly happy. It might just be a facade for, let's say, social media, which is very common nowadays, when in reality, these people aren't even investing their money. I think when there's a popular influencer, I think his name is Steve Will Do It. He made that beer, I think it's called Happy Dad. Apologies, I just don't really know too much about it, but this is just from memory right now. But I think he made sort of let's say, not a blast, but anyway, he was like on the news, let's say, because he is very into investing. And I feel like a lot of social media influencers are maybe a little ignorant when it comes to this. But the fact that he, I think, is invested in stocks and real estate, people saw him now as someone that they respected more. Like, he's not just an influencer, someone that you might think, oh, they're just an influencer, they don't know what they're talking about. It's like, no, this person actually took the time to learn to invest. He's investing to make sure that if the influencing doesn't go well, he has a secure cushion to fall back on. So I think it's very important, and I think all of us should take the time to invest, because it certainly will make you live longer if you can imagine yourself being older and having all the fruits of your labor now working for you.
So what's the secret for a long, happy life?
Oh, I think just love of life. It's a devotion to my family, to the ones I love.
What matters most to me today is the welfare of my family members.
You can't get anywhere in life till you start doing things for other people.
Giving is a real joy.
The two things that we see a lot now in the end of this video are family and charity. I feel like the older I've gotten, the more and more I want to devote time to my family. When I was younger, when a lot of us are younger, we feel like all we want to do is spend so much time with our friends. And I think that's normal as teens, and I think it's actually kind of healthy. But the older you get, we realize that family is really what counts. Recently my wife and I were planning on something to do for her 29th birthday, and we maybe wanted to go to New York or Boston or Punta Cana and the Dominican Republic. And we finally settled on going to where her family lives, and we decided that because we get to be close to family. Every single time I'm with family, I always feel a rush of happiness, and it's something that I yearn to get more and more of. And it's why in the future, I hope to actually move closer to my family so I can spend more time with them, especially when I introduce kids. And then, of course, there's charity, doing things for others, giving to others. That is one thing that I truly feel that humans are particularly very good at. It's something that a lot of us might think, well, why am I going to do something for someone else? What do I get from that? Why do they deserve my, let's say, attention? But try it out someday. Do something for someone, help someone, give someone money if they're in need. All these charitable donations, let's say, whether it be through time or money or maybe in another fashion, will make you feel better. And I think these little acts of kindness you do throughout your life will compound over time, maybe reduce a little bit of that stress, make you feel happier, and I think if you just put all these things together, you will live a very long and fruitful life. So that's really the end of it. I'm really glad that I was able to watch this video with y'all. It's the first time I ever do this sort of reaction type video. If you like this sort of thing, stick around, subscribe, like, comment, all that crazy YouTube stuff. I hope to find more videos like this in the future, or maybe books or articles or whatever it be. On this channel, we just talk about workplace and mindset and perspective. Today was more about a perspective shift, kind of going along with the previous video I made. And that's really all about it. So again, just a very sweet video, just to sort of remind us, where all of us are at, and hopefully to keep us grounded and remind us of the important things in life and to see how we can achieve them. So with all that being said, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Later.